On today's episode, I have Tenille Townes, and I've been a fan of Tenille. I told her since CMT Next Women to Country. It was 2019, and I had heard her because she had such a unique voice, and she's from Canada, and I remember thinking like, wow, like we're going to hear from her, and we slowly started to, and she was signed to Sony, and you're going to hear about all this later in the episode. But I remember her being on tours and the song was doing really well. And then all of a sudden you kind of like stopped hearing as much. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I know on major labels, like things get tied up and there's other people that they're pushing and this and that. And I asked her, where we think the disconnect is and why it didn't become bigger when she's on these major tours. She has a charting single, all of these incredible opportunities. And it's just, I think there is a level of confusion for both of us. We wonder, we sit back and we go like, okay, we have all of this laid out and it should amount to something so big, right? And then somewhere along the line, the momentum slows down. And it's one of those questions that we just don't understand. Like we don't understand the answer because in the bigger scheme of things, I'm confused. I could tell sitting with her that potentially she may even still be confused. And I know that's a hard question to tackle with an artist because everything is so personal to us and it's our art, it's our baby. And so to someone to look at you and say like, why wasn't it more successful? That's just such a hard thing to swallow and to say. So I think it was just an appropriate question to just kind of like, what do you think it is? And we both kind of sat here and it was it's confusing still because she's had so much going on. And we talk about her parting ways with Sony. And I really love how, for me, now this is me talking, me personally, me, Tiffany, if I was on Sony and then we part ways, it'd be really discouraging. And I don't know how I would feel about continuing on. It'd be really hard. I love her encouragement and her gumption to keep going, to want to be true to herself, to still be working really hard on tours, putting out music, being really honest with herself. And she says the word free a lot. She goes, I feel free. There's a freedom in that. And I'm really excited to see what she does with that. I also love, it was something that she said that stuck with me. She says, it's about making noise in an already really noisy world. And she's so right. There's so much noise around us right now. Everything is so loud, especially the music industry. And we've talked about this before, how there's so much option that it's hard when something new comes in or you're trying to get something heard because there's so much that it's like, how do you make noise when there's already so much noise around you? And I think that's going to be something that she's going to try and tackle and see. And I'm really excited to see what she does with it. I loved her talking about the song that started Somebody's Daughter, which I believe if you're watching this and you're hearing this, it's probably how you know Tenille. I think when you say Tenille Townes to somebody, someone says Somebody's Daughter. And it's the song that is the most, I think, well-known of hers. And the story of her talking about that, you're going to find really interesting and very vulnerable and very deep. And that's what I think a lot of our music is missing today, which I think Tenille is very good with, is deep lyrics. She is a true songwriter, and these topics aren't talked about very often. So I know it's very easy to do more cookie cutter, easy on the ears topics. And she actually sings about things that have a lot of substance. And I find that to be really courageous and just something that a lot of songwriters and artists should look to and hope to aspire to release more music like that. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. I had so much fun sitting down with her today. Tenille, thank you so much for being on What's Mine Is Yours.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I know you're like on tour right now, so it's thank you for sitting down.
I'm so glad to. This is
being
great.
Here. I first I think the first time I was really introduced to you and your music, and I've been a fan ever since, was it 2019 you were CMT Next Women in the Country?
Probably. That sounds right.
I was at that show, and I know you sang somebody's daughter there and everything. I was like, oh, she's cool, because you have a really interesting voice,
Thank
too.
you.
It's very cool. And I genuinely think it's all about tone in this industry. Like, if you have a tone that can be recognized through like a radio or something and you don't sound like somebody else,
right.
You have that.
Thank you.
So that's incredible.
I appreciate that.
Being on tour right now, I want you to talk about your tour right now, because I know you announced it, you're on that, because it was kind of, and what I want to get to is, which we will get to later, but I wanted to ask if it's cathartic right now because of the recent stuff with Sony.
Right. Yes, it is. I feel like getting back to this idea of live music, like that's always been such a gravity for me, is like, it's this tangible thing when you're in a room with people who are connecting on a song. It's like, I like to think about it, everybody's got their own movie in their head happening, but like the emotion is like this invisible thread that's the same. That's like, it's just so cool that everybody in a room can just kind of like feel something together like that. So I love being on the road. I love motion. I love seeing new places and visiting new coffee shops and getting to meet people in person. And like, I really love what it means to be on the road. So I'm having a blast. We're out on our Canadian headline tour right now, and we just kicked it off with 4 sold out shows on the East Coast, which was so fun. The crowds are amazing and they're singing so loud. And it's just like, it feels really, I felt very present and very real in these shows, and just being like, right, like this is what this is for. Like it's us together in this. And honestly, it kind of feels more free with the recent changes of going independent. It's just kind of like, I can just make whatever music I want next and have this direct line to everybody who's coming to the shows and who's already leaning in and excited to hear new music. And it's like, okay, this makes it feel like there's like arms that are open that I can leap out into the unknown and make that jump with. And I'm so grateful to all those people for like their just beautiful encouragement in this kind of scary season. It's been really timely to be on this tour right now for sure.
Do you plan on doing any shows similarly in the States or just Canada?
We're on this. We did like a U.S. club tour earlier this year to kind of like ramp into this part of the tour in Canada. So I'm really looking forward to playing more U.S. shows probably next year at this point. But yeah, I love to be on the road at any time. So we're looking at that and getting back to the U.K. and some of the Europe touring that we've done, which is so fun. So I'm looking forward to lots more of that next year too.
And not to compare at all, but I had a very similar conversation, probably a year now at this point, with Hunter Hayes on the show, where like when you use the word free, I think he even said that about touring and how the connection of being able to kind of like do your own thing, release what you want to do. So it's a very similar kind of thing.
I think so. It's just kind of like getting back to the basics of what I got into this for, which is hopefully to make songs that mean something to me and hopefully mean something to somebody else listening. And like, I think it's really cool to just sort of like push the systems and even the algorithms and whatever else aside just be like, let's get to the soul of the music. Like that's what I'm so hungry for. And I think people are too. There's a lot of noise in the world. There's a lot of just things going on. And I think there's something sacred with the moments where we sort of just like tune out anything that's going on outside of like the moment that we're in. And I think live music really kind of pushes us to be really present in a good way. I know it does for me.
Yeah, I think that's what music is all about.
Yeah.
Take me back to little Tenille. Okay. And I usually don't like to do this too often because I kind of feel like people can Google this. So, but at the same time, there could be people listening to this who don't know your backstory. Right. And it's kind of the big who, what, when, where, why. Like, just give me a breakdown of it all.
I mean, I've just always loved music. No one in my family really did music. I was sort of the weird one who was like, Mom, I want to sing. And my grandparents got me my first guitar. I was like 14, and I started writing songs and pairing it with what I'd been like writing poems about with a couple of chords. And that to me was like, oh, like I could do this. Like I want to tell stories and then go play them for people. And so the guitar was like a big conduit for that for me. And then it was time to graduate high school, and you know, convinced my parents that I wasn't going to college. Like my dad was a big 10,000 hour Malcolm Gladwell fan. And so I used that in my pitch. And I was like, I can't get my 10,000 hours if I'm going to school. Like I've got to hit the road. And so I put together this school tour that traveled for like 32 weeks across Canada. And that was me like proving my point that I was super serious about music. And when that wrapped up, I was like, okay, now I need to get to Nashville and write and record some stuff and get going. And so my dad helped me make the trip, and we drove 47 hours from my hometown all the way here. And I haven't really looked back since. So I love it here, and I really love getting to wake up and do the thing that I love. But yeah, I sang at all kinds of different local events as a kid, the national anthem at all our hockey games and whatever local events were happening. I was just like, do you need a singer? I'm your girl.
And there is a story that I read about you being pulled up on stage, right, with Shania Twain?
Yes, that was pretty pivotal. I was like big time Shania Twain fan, knew every song. You kind of
have to be, right?
I mean, you have to be. She's Canadian, and like she just has made such a fierce path in the world. And it was just like, if she can do it coming from Timmins, Ontario, then certainly someone from Grand Prairie, Alberta stands a chance. Like it just felt so encouraging. And so she was coming through her tour on the Up tour. I was 9 years old, and we'd gotten tickets. And so I made a sign, said, Shania, can I please sing with you? And I had asked my mom to help to make me a costume so I could look like her Miami concert DVD that I'd watched 5 million times. And so we're like in the car about to start the 5-hour drive to go to the concert. And I was like, Mom, where's my costume? And she's like, I ran out of time. I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, that's all right. I got my sign. And she's like, she told my dad to put the truck in park. And then she got back into the house. She plugged the glue gun in, and she like glue gunned the ribbons down my
glue
pant.
gun.
Yeah, saved the day. So it dried on the dash on our 5-hour drive to the concert. And so I put my costume on. I was so excited, and I was like singing every song. And I could see she was coming around the stage, and the security guard had kind of saw me and let me like pushed me up to the front, which was so sweet. And she let this girl sing a couple lines, like maybe 20 seats down from me, and she like held the microphone out, and then she started walking towards me, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna let me sing a line. And I was so excited. But instead of the microphone, like she reached out her hand, and everything from that point is a little bit blurry, but I just threw the sign, grabbed her hand, and like, you know, danced around this 3-tiered stage in the center with her. I remember the floor was like checker plate, like so like tin almost. But anyways, we stand at the top level by the end of the song, and I look out and I couldn't see anything. I'd never like seen what it looks like to have stage lights where you can't actually see the crowd. It's just this black kind of fog. And she's like, your sign said you want to sing with me, but I want to hear you sing. So I sang like a chorus of Honey, I'm Home in front of 18,000 people. And I was just like, this is it. Like, this is all I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, she lit such a fire in me that day. And now it's my mission to just keep paying that feeling forward. So we had a pretty surreal full circle moment last year. It's like, I can't even make this up, but we got to open for her on her Canadian tour. And we played back in Edmonton, where that had happened almost 20 years, like to the month.
That gives me chills.
It was
That's really
pretty
cool.
Crazy. And so she brought me back on stage. We sang together again and told the whole story, and that was pretty wild. So
that's really, really cool.
It was really cool.
I mean, I think that's like what most artists can just dream about being able to say and do. So that's pretty dang cool.
It's pretty dang cool. I don't know how to really articulate the proper like thank you. Like I wrote her a card, and I was just like, do you know how much you've like inspired my life? It's like, oh, she's amazing. So that was pretty awesome to get to be a part of that tour.
What's funny is obviously being Canadian, I kind of feel like a lot of other I'm not Canadian, by the way. That kind of came me off like I'm Canadian, not me. I'm
You can
American.
be honorary. It's fine.
But most female artists will say like Shania Twain makes sense, right?
Yeah.
She's able to cross so many like boundaries and do so many things and being a good, and I feel like the American version of it, when I hear American country music singers will always say like Dolly.
Right. Totally.
And I think it's a huge testament of like the career that person had.
Right. And the impact to people like around the world, you know, it's like, I mean, Dolly's just, she has a way of talking about home. Like she sings this Tennessee Mountain Home song, and it's just like, she could be singing about anyone's song in the whole world that's like this feeling of home.
It's a gift.
And it's just like, you hear it and you just feel childhood. And Coat of Many Colors, that was like one of my grandparents' favorite songs. And like, they lived that era of literally I have quilts from my great grandmother of all the clothes that she was repurposing for these blankets. And it's like the ability to make something beautiful out of nothing. And that song is just like sets the bar for like being a good human for them. And to me as a songwriter, it's like always looking up to that. But yeah, she's pretty special. What an icon. It's just like, I don't know, made people's lives better, like just by feeling seen and heard through their songs. And like, I think that's the whole point of it all.
Definitely the whole point of it all. And it's funny, it's a good transition because there's something, I'm an artist in town too. And I think it's easy to give like a good softball answer, which is also true when we say it's about the love of what we do and it's the connection with people. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Totally.
But what do you think it is about fame, money, and seeking love of others that is a common thread for artists?
Interesting question. I don't know. I think it's like artistically, it's just like this human thing to like want to make something and share it. It's like, I don't care if you're a carpenter or a painter or what level of that. It's just kind of like, it's part of being a human is like to document your existence, I think, and be like, I was here, you know? And like, I think that's something, I don't know, when music's planted, it's a very twisted thing. I sit and probably, I'm an overthinker and I definitely sit and think about this probably way too much, but it's like this sort of imposter syndrome or like a hero complex or like this idea of like saving the world with songs or something. And it's like, sometimes that just gets in my head where it's like, what are you doing? And then there's other moments where it's like, no, this is important. And like music is healing and it's part of our job to talk about things that are hard. For me, I'm such an introvert. It's like to like have a conversation with somebody about something is like often a stretch for me.
Oh, really? You seem to be pretty good at it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm really working on it. Yeah. But it's like to sing about it, no problem.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's also a thing with artistry, or at least for me, it's like if you give me a guitar and I can just sing to you about it, like then you're gonna hear from like a true place in me that's like way easier for me to reach than maybe in a conversation some way. So I think in a lot of ways music's like a vessel to like help people actually communicate. It is for me.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of similar like with a comedian, right?
Right.
That you, when you meet one, like in real life, half of the time they're very shut off, closed in, but they be able to express themselves through jokes on a stage. So very similar.
I think it is similar. It's totally a point of expression, and like sometimes it's easier to just kind of hide that in the music than it is to just like be in normal life.
Right. You know what I find really weird though is like going back to the idea of those three things that feel very like taboo to talk about. First of all, fame is like a dirty word, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, money, even a dirtier word.
Right.
Seeking validation or seeking love from someone, also dirty. But if you really break down each of these, why? Okay, like I don't get why we have to shy away from these things so much. First of all, this is called the music business. Why is it bad to say we want to make money doing it?
Right. It's true.
It's literally like how we have to pay the bills. And if we don't want to do this for a job, then we can just do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Also, our job is when we say the seeking love from other people, that's called fans. You have to. If we don't have them, we're not doing this as a job.
Yeah.
Like again, and it's so when you break each of these things down that sounds so bad, like fame. Well, fame doesn't have to mean what people think it is. What it really, to me, what it means is recognition for something you do on a public scale.
Right.
That people know about.
Totally.
More than just your inner circle.
Yeah.
That's fame, right? It could be bad good, like bad fame or good fame, but it's doing something on a public scale that people know about.
Right.
And why we taboo these words up so much as an artist, and like you can't talk about wanting to be famous, wanting to be wealthy, or wanting to seek love from people.
Yeah.
That's weird. I think that's just like so interesting. So I told you before we started I wanted to play a game, and I don't want to use the bad words, so we're changing the names to smash, pass, or keep.
Okay. Yep.
And the three things, because like I said, the softball answer, we already know we want to connect with people, and it's the love of what we do.
Yeah.
Duh. Okay. Move on. Smash, pass, or keep. Fame, money, seeking love.
Ooh, okay, so I have to pair Okay, so it's going to be, okay.
I can give you mine too.
Yeah, okay, let's see.
Because my answers would have been different 10 years ago, by the way.
Interesting.
Which I find interesting, which comes with age. But
yeah, I think I would pass on the fame.
Okay.
I think I would. This is so crazy because it is such a thing. They all feel so dirty.
I think we're gonna have the same answers. But
I think I would keep the connection element, which
seeking love.
Yeah, validation. And then
smash some money. We have the same answers. Okay, so that's exactly what I would have said. But 10 years ago, I would have smashed fame.
Interesting.
I would have ditched money.
Right.
And I would have still kept seeking the love.
Yep.
And it's really weird that the more you're in this business, the more you realize I kind of need to make a living.
Yeah.
And I less care about walking into a restaurant, people knowing who I am.
Yeah. That always kind of weirds me out. I mean, it always translates to someone has heard my song and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I'll take that all day long.
True.
But it's definitely, that's not what I got into this for.
No, because again, at the end of the day, we really do get into it for the love of it and for the connection. I totally get that. But also there's other things that happen in this business. Where you stand today as an artist, and obviously with all of your success, which we're going to get into, and the things that you've accomplished, are you satisfied if it all ended?
Oh, wow. What a big question. I've really been thinking about that a lot. I think with my decision to kind of go independent, I was wrestling a lot with what does this idea of success look like for me? And I'm very much a goal person and very much got the vision board and the things that I'm always reaching for. And I think that's what it means to be human. That's literally the human condition, is always searching for something else. And that will never change for me. I will always be okay, I got this one thing checked off and now I'm working towards this thing. That's just how I'm wired. But I've definitely been reevaluating lately what success means and what really actually fulfills my soul as a human. And I have so many more things that I want to go for in the world, so I don't ever want to be done. But I've very much achieved. The kid who showed up here to Nashville all those years ago, she'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
We're doing what? And I think it's healthy to I don't know, remind yourself of that sometimes. It's no, I'm doing the thing. I moved really far from home and I've bet on myself, and I have had the time of my life seeing the world and playing songs on stages for people, and they've sang them back to me and danced with me and forgot about the worries in the world and, cried and felt something together. And it's that's it. If it ends tomorrow, I think I've done what I wanted, what I came to do.
Awesome. What is something, because you're not done.
Yeah.
And it's not over. What's something that you still really would like to accomplish? If you were being really honest.
If I'm being really honest, I am working towards a tour bus situation right now. I love being on the road so much, and it's so expensive and hard to tour and to travel and to check all those things off. And so,
especially independently.
Yes. And so the idea of a bus is oof, it's out of the budget for sure. But if I had a bus, I could bring my dog and I could do some more writing and set up little studio vibes in there and just kind of have my home base that was on the road. Right now we're between vans and hotels, and then we have this bandwagon thing that we're taking out. It's kind of like a food truck. It's got bunks in it, but it's a box truck and it's really bumpy and all the things. So
that's hard. That's hard.
So next goal is let's get some more music out, get it rocking so that we can tour in a bus.
So I'm going to touch on this a little later, but because you're talking about this now, and I'm genuinely curious, is it hard to go from having kind of all of those things before, right? You've been on major tours, you've done some really cool stuff.
Yep.
You probably got the all-star treatment at some points, right?
Yeah, we've always been vanning it and we've never.
You have. Okay.
I rode on Miranda Lambert's crew bus on the very first tour I was ever on, and it was so awesome, and I loved it.
It's hard to get a bite of something like that.
It is. I know. I was it was so awesome though. And she took everyone we've opened with has taken such great care of us on the road and really shown us the ropes of what it's like. And I've learned so much watching everyone's shows and all of that. But I feel I've had a pretty gradual progression in it. Yeah. I don't think it's not like we came when I was on a deal. I never was rolling the expense tab up or any. No, I never kind of operated that way. So I've always had it in my mind, once we get to a bus, we're going to stay because we're going to work our way there.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny is I don't know what year it was for me, but I think Miranda Lambert was on the ticket. Have you ever heard of the Oregon Jamboree?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was able to perform at it one year, and it was my one of the very first thing for me,
awesome.
where I never had done anything yet. I just put my band together. I don't really know how this happened. And I got the royal treatment, though, the sound, the sound guy, the in-ears, the whole this.
Yep.
And then so I was like, yeah, this is how it goes. And then I get back and I'm doing like the bar gigs, and like no one knows what's up, what's down. And I came in, I remember, with a rig once with like in-ears set up, and they're like, we don't have that. You're like, good luck. They're like
here's a wedge.
Yeah,
what do you want?
Go for it. So I was like wondering, and I was like, how it would feel. But now, to clarify, you've kind of always done the van thing.
That's kind of always been our mentality. Is like, when we get there, let's make it feel like we've really earned it.
I love it.
You know? So yeah. But yeah, there's certain things where you're like, okay, if it was just a little more comfortable. Like right now we're touring with like a very skeleton crew, and it means everyone's multitasking and doing a million things.
Yeah.
And like the tour manager is also driving and also doing merch, and also like it's just like everyone's like carrying a lot. And so I look forward to getting just like the next step hopefully would mean things could just like have a little more ease and like breathe a little easier. But I also look at it, and I've heard so many of my mentors and friends at higher levels talking about things, and it's like it's just all an adventure. And like once you get to the next thing, there's gonna be all these other things you have to deal with. So like, of course, it's just kind of what life is and what the road and what the journey is, I guess. So yeah, I just want to learn and take it all in as I go.
When it comes to your body of work and stuff you've put out, let's start with the Lemonade Stand, because that's kind of how most people were introduced to you.
Yeah.
And obviously the show is about songwriting. I don't want to stay like that. We have to talk about that to some degree.
Yeah.
I looked at kind of the list of songs, and I've obviously listened to the album many times, and this was back in, when did you release that again?
2020.
2020.
Yep.
And there's a lot of heavy hitters on there that you wrote with. Like you had a lot of amazing co-writers. Tell me about kind of the process of writing that album, what it was like, and what was your favorite song you wrote?
This writing process was, everything was so new, and like a lot of these songs were first songs that I had ever written with these people, which was so exciting because I've grown up like a songwriting nerd. Like from day one, I was always obsessed with lyric booklets and reading the names of everybody who'd written these songs, and was just like, one day I want to get in the room with these people. And this record was really a lot of my first time experiencing getting in the room with a lot of these people. It was. But like there was something where I actually wasn't that nervous. Like I just kind of felt like I was so excited. Like there wasn't even any room for feeling any pressure at all. Like I just was like, I get to be in a room with Gordy Sampson today. This is so exciting. And so, but yeah, I had written a handful of songs with them, with Gordy especially, before I'd like officially signed my deal and we'd started like working on this record. And then, but yeah, it was my first pub deal. Like it was early getting in the room with all these people. So Jersey on the Wall is very special to me, and definitely will always mean a lot because people come up and tell me stories about people in their life that they've lost and like what the song means to them. And that's so crazy to me. Like it takes a lot of courage to talk about those things. And I don't know, I think a song's ability to kind of open that door inside yourself is really, it's healing for me, and it means the world that people have found that with that song. So that was with Tina Pearl and Gordy Sampson. And then Somebody's Daughter was the first time I'd written with Luke Laird and Barry Dean. And I had this moment driving with my mom. She was in town helping me set up my like little apartment. We were going furniture shopping, and we saw this girl standing on the side of the interstate with a cardboard sign, and just had this conversation at the red light, like thinking about what her name could be and what her story was. And we saw the guy in the truck in front of us like get out of his vehicle, and he had a cooler in the back, and he got her some like Gatorades. And so we will witness this like beautiful moment, and then something about her just kind of stuck with me as the light turns green and you just drive away. And like it's like, how do I get to be in the car with my mom furniture shopping, and like she could be the same age as me, and like how many left turns and right turns in all of our lives like lead to that kind of moment. So anyways, I was thinking about that for a few weeks, and I showed up in the room with a couple lines started, and Luke had this loops in the exact same key and tempo that I'd been working on. So that was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then Barry Dean came up a little bit later, and he had this folder of newspaper articles he'd been collecting with ideas for songs kind of intertwined. And one of the articles talked about homelessness and how street names and numbers coordinate with different like areas in a neighborhood. And I was like, this is crazy. So we just kind of like looked at each other like, we're supposed to write this song today. So, but yeah, those are definitely two that stick with me. One of them is called When I Meet My Maker, which I wrote by myself just sitting at a coffee table like when I first moved to Nashville. And it's a song that makes me think of my great grandmother, my Mère Willette. And so that one is very special to me as well. But yeah, that it was really cool in the studio too. We just did like a live pass of that. So what you hear is me literally just sitting at the altar in this studio, just singing the song top to bottom. So that was pretty cool.
Because I want to get to the idea of you announcing, like, separating from Sony, and because when we talk about the Lemonade Stand, which was your first album that was released with them, sitting here today, are you happy with that album creatively?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And do you feel like you had the creative control over that album?
I do. I think I was very early in my like exploration stages of production wise. Like I just was so green and learning so much. So I definitely feel like I learned an immense amount through that experience, and I loved working with Jay Joyce, and he's such a mastermind. And yeah, I definitely, that process was like, whoa. It's just like taking it all in, and I would just really cared about these songs, and I'm really grateful for the way that they turned out, and I learned a lot in that process just as an artist and a human.
Sure.
So it was a lot of learning, but I do feel really proud, and I think it represents where I was in that moment very well.
If you could change anything about it today, would you?
I don't think I would. I think I take everything that I learned with me and carry it through, but it's like my courage to speak up for like more of what I want in a studio situation is something that I'm still working on very much. And so like that, I would be like, say more, but it's also, I wouldn't have even known what to say then. You know what I mean? Now I do, because I've experienced more things and I've written more and worked with different people, and it's just kind of like, oh, I know what I like and what I want to hear more of, and like that makes it possible to take more control of. I feel like then I wouldn't have even known what to take the reins on. So
I know like 2020, that was a hard year to release music in general.
It was a tough moment.
Very tough. What would you say out of the whole kind of era of the Lemonade Stand was your favorite memory?
I would say getting to tour it after the fact, once the music had kind of gotten out there, and it was such a strange time in the world, and so much was up in the air for just human beings in general. And so getting to like be back in rooms together with people and be like, we can sing these songs together that are on this project that came out in a really dark time, that was really cool to me.
Yeah, and what were the tours that you got to go on? Miranda Lambert.
Yep, and Dierks Bentley, he took us out for all of 2019. So leading up to that album, which was really special. He took amazing care of us too, and we spent the entirety of that year on the road with him. And then coming out of that, we did some of our own headline shows for the first time, which was really fun. And we got to be on the road for the Brothers Osborne tour, which was really special. They're so great. I learned so much about how to put on a show, watching them. And yeah, we did a handful of dates with a lot of legends after the pandemic too. Like we got to open a weekend with Reba and one with Brooks and Dunn and some George Strait dates. And like, that was really inspiring to me too. And we did a Stevie Nicks date and then the Shania tour after that. So yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Okay. Just because you were public about it and you put it up on Instagram, I want to talk about the separation between you and Sony, and not to get weird about it. But my more thing was, I read the Billboard article that they wrote. Okay, and I want to touch through something, because there's some things I like about it and there's some things I don't like about it. And but now this is just coming from my opinion. But at first, I know they go over your immense success, which is just undeniable. You've had 15 Canadian Country Music Association Awards.
Something like that, yep.
You also won ACM New Female Artist of the Year and another ACM award that year.
Yep.
You've been on massive tours, the success of somebody's daughter, which I think, 27? Reached 27?
Yep, something like
like that.
I think on the Aircheck chart, yeah.
Okay, so just tying that all together, that's like a full 5 careers worth of like success. And they go on to say in this article, and this is where I get a little irritated, and I just bear with me. They say, huge success in Canada, stateside hasn't experienced the same liftoff.
Right. I haven't read this article.
Oh, you haven't?
Good to know.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
No, it's
I
good.
don't mean, no, because first of all, the choice of words pisses me off. So
Yeah.
Okay, stateside. So now that answered my next question. I said I was going to ask you, have you read the article? How'd that make you feel? Stupid. Okay, because I know how I would feel. Hasn't experienced the same liftoff. So I go back to all of the success that you've had, specifically also very much in Canada too, right?
Right.
And then with the stupid line that they put in there, even though you've won New Female Artist of the Year, you've been signed to Sony, you've had a charting single, why do you think, for lack of a better words, there hasn't been the same liftoff?
I don't know what the reasons are. I feel like if I knew exactly, I would, get it lifted off.
I mean, I guess that's fair. That's a fair point. But I imagine those are conversations you've probably had with yourself.
Definitely.
With labels, with all the things of business, of wise.
Yes.
If you personally, because again, you have that talk with yourself at night, I'm sure I would. And what do you think it is personally?
I mean, for me, here's the thing, and this is also like what I feel like really helped me get to this place and the decision to like part ways and was this idea of like what does define success to me. And like I think, and I completely understand why a major label, they're a business. It's an operation that's operated around numbers and things hitting certain targets, and I totally get that. And it's like, but the idea of success, of what I would celebrate as a win, was always like against different standards within the system, and I don't think we ever like quite lined up with that. And so it was a strange time to put out the first bit of music. There was a world pandemic that happened, there's a whole thing about female voices. There's like a lot of whatever you want to look at, whatever the uphill is. I've never really been like, oh, we didn't get there. Like that's never been this scarcity mindset that I've had. I'm just grateful that people are, to me, the ultimate like decision or level of success, which I want to continue to work my butt off to grow, is someone deciding to buy a ticket to a show. Because if they're going to go out of their way in their busy lives and decide on a certain day on a calendar that they're going to come and spend time together and invest in listening to the music leading up to it and come and like get a t-shirt and be at the show, like that to me is success. And so whatever that amounts to on a chart or on whatever number systems that we have to qualify in a music business of hitting levels, to me that's disregarded if people are showing up to the show.
Okay, I have one more probably challenging question to ask you. Having all of this excitement, because you did have a lot of it, like in that amount of time when in 2020.
Yeah.
And then to part ways and have, because for lack of a better word, independence hard. You don't have the backing anymore.
Right.
So to lose that feeling of momentum and excitement, how has that been?
I mean, hard for sure. What's ironic is it honestly, and what I'm doing on the day to day hasn't really changed, because what I was doing when I had the deal was creating content every day, feeling anxious about what I'm posting. Is it working? Like so much of that is still very much on the daily the same. And also just getting to jump into the arms of this tour and feeling like, oh, this is real and tangible, and people are coming and singing the songs, and like, so that's been like really timely in that. But it's definitely like been a mind game for me for sure, of like, I think moving here, it's like so much of the target for any artist is like get the deal and like come to town and like want you, and then it's like, oh, you think that's like some kind of finish line or something, and it's like, oh no that's
sometimes it could be actually the worst thing,
right? Or it just depends how it works, but also it was amazing. I'm so grateful I got to make the music that I made and that they paid for those albums to happen.
got
and,
you
like,
out there, right?
Yes. And now I have these people who know these songs and who are coming to the shows. And like in so many ways, they've set me up in such an amazing position. And so I feel super grateful for that part of it. And I've definitely communicated and just been like, thank you for taking a chance on me. Like, it's a lot to gamble on any artist right now.
Especially such a big label, right? I mean,
Totally. And it's a lot to invest. And I'm so grateful for that. And however ways it works out or shakes out, it's like, oh gosh, I just want to keep working away at doing this for the long haul. And this is just the part of the story right now that I'm in. And I can't wait to figure out what's coming around the corner next.
What is next?
I am working on new music. I've been writing and honestly just kind of taking a moment to step back and go, okay, I'm in this place of freedom and this like where there's not the pressure of a system of any kind. And it's just like, okay, what do I want to say? And what do I want it to sound like if I can just do whatever I want? It's like for a lot of what it's felt like, it's like been holding on to a certain number of crayons in a box and like making the best pictures that I can with that. And now it's like, I got the whole box back. It's like, what do you want to do? And there's a fear in that too. It's just kind of like, okay, now this is up to like, what do I want? Like deciding that is like, feels like a big question. So I'm in the searching piece of that right now. And I'm exploring, trying out different things in the studio and writing a bunch and just going, all right, what's this next stage going to be? So I'm enjoying this tour. I'm going to soak up every moment of the rest of this year on the road. And then I'm going to get to work in January and really get crafting what's next. And I really want to come at it from a perspective of like, it's so easy to like stay on the hamster wheel that society's so built around right now of like on the daily, like that anxious feeling of staying on top of things and literally the idea of having to post all the things and like,
it's awful,
just,
isn't it?
I think the creative side of anyone struggles in that place. And I know it does for me because it really takes a lot of my energy and my spirit. And so I want to be careful and selective to like keep that at a place that's healthier so that I can make something that I look back on in 30 years or 50 years and be like, I'm really proud of what I made in this time. And so I want to really treat that with care. And that's where I'm at right now.
And you haven't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you haven't released anything yet under just you, right?
No, not yet.
And let me tell you what I think my biggest fear would be if I like, and not just if I try to put myself in your shoes, is coming from such a big label with backing. Do you have any fear about the getting it out there, the marketing side of things?
I mean,
like a budget to put, I mean,
oh
again, of putting it
all
out,
of that
right?
feels scary. Like this is my money now. And it always kind of was. It was just on a tab, but like, but now it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like it feels like this. There's a little bit of fear around it because it's
more on you, right?
It is more on me, but then also there's a freedom in
too.
that too, because it's like, man, I get to own that, and I get to like jump into it with my. And that's just going to be what it is. And so I think there's like a surrender in that I'm trying to embrace right now. But yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, it's like, it was terrifying before. It's terrifying now. I don't care what. It's sort of like, it's just terrifying even still, like regardless of financially or like what the support system is around something or the ability to make noise in this world that's full of it right now. Like all of that's one thing, but like just the act of I made something that's kind of vulnerable and like talks about something I'm going through or something I've witnessed, like just putting that out already is like a vulnerable kind of courageous act. But I to get to a point of like feeling confident and not in just being like, yeah, here's this thing I made and I believe in it. And it doesn't really matter beyond that. Like just being solid in that is way easier said than done. But that's what I'm working on.
I really like what you just said. Trying to make noise in a world where there's already so much noise. Yeah. It's very hard. Like if everybody's screaming at the top of their lungs, how is your scream going to be heard amongst
think about that all the time.
So many other screams.
Literally. It's screams that are in like 3-second increments of a scroll. You know, it's like, okay, it really is. I think that's why more now than I ever have been is like sort of zooming out to go, what do I want to make and be proud of years from now, and like get to the craft of the music and like stand behind that. Because if you're just trying to make noise, like, what's the point?
What's the point?
And it comes and goes so quick, and that's okay. That's where we're at. That's what we've created as a society and as an industry. And so that's not something I can change. I just want to be able to like make my impact in a small way or a big way in the landscape that we've got right now, and just like really focus on the quality of what that is for me.
Another way that I had heard it said the other day, which I really, really liked, was we keep hearing over and over again, like, make your own lane, carve your own lane. Then I heard someone say, it's not about carving your own lane. It's about it's standing in the middle of traffic and having people stop.
Yeah, literally.
And I said,
oof.
I guess that's the work smarter, not harder. Like carving a whole new lane would be really, really, that's a lot of work. But if I could just stand in the middle of traffic and make people notice, maybe I could bypass creating the whole new lane. But
wow, interesting. That's a big question.
Especially when it's coming to social media. Now we place so much effort on this content. And it's about trying to like stand in the middle of traffic and hoping that you've stood there long enough for people to like, it catches you in a world full of, like you've said, 3-second intervals of so much of it that it's like painful. It hurts my head. And having to be an artist, and I know what this is like because now we're expected to do everything, right? It's not just go do what we love, go into a studio and make something that we're really proud of. Now it's go lip sync to it in your car and put it up. Go like do weird stuff to it. And I go, I don't want to though.
Right.
Like, first of all, I'm awkward. I know I don't like, I love talking to people, but I hate talking to myself.
Oh yeah, that's big struggle for me for sure.
It's weird.
Cameras just in general have always been a struggle, and now it's like the one in my hand is literally controlling the destiny of my songs.
Yeah. Gosh.
It's so weird. It's just a change, and change is hard. And
There's some that I wish would go.
Yeah, that's a big one for me for sure. Doesn't come easy or natural.
What is something that you still want to write about that you haven't written about? Not to give anything too away. I would hate for someone to like try and run off with a good idea. But you know what I mean? What's something like a story you haven't told yet?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some stories of this feeling of freedom for me. And like the
word free comes up a lot with you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a thing or part of the theme of what happens musically from this point. And like that idea of like just letting go.
Yeah.
And like I want that to be a theme in this next music for sure.
And I know this goes without saying because this is a really silly, but it's just, do you want success from this new music? As in commercial?
I mean, of course. Okay. Yeah, I do.
Because I think that's fair to say. Because I know, again, it's like something that people don't want to say. You're like, no, as long as it makes me happy. Yes, obviously. But you want commercial success from this next music, right?
I do. I want to be making music for the rest of my life. So in order to, keep growing and building that's definitely on something that I want and that I believe is possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we end, I kind of want to break down some certain things with you where you can share some personal stories. I think life is broken down up in moments. And they're all separated by good, bad, sad, happy. So I'm going to have you give some examples of some moments in your life that I think will be really helpful for people to like know your heart and know you. So what is your happiest moment?
Ooh. Let me think about that. It's kind of like,
I guess that's kind of hard because it's like you really have to filter through that. But if like it just comes to you, something that just a pure happy moment that you've had.
I mean, it's to me, to be honest, at this point, like just coming fresh off these shows, it's like that's when my head's the quietest up there, and when I feel like I'm thinking less and just feeling more is honestly just being on the road. That's a big happy moment for me, and so is like coming home and my dog like running to the door because he's so excited to see me, and and just like. I don't know. I'm trying to find more of the happier moments being just at home too. And I do really love that too. But yeah, just being around people making me laugh, and that's kind of a happy place I go to for sure, is sitting around a campfire with some friends. Yeah.
Moment of heartbreak.
I think the moment of heartbreaks for me are always around big changes, you know, like I always think about the landslide. I think that's one of the greatest lyrics of all time. It's like, I've been afraid of changing because I've built my life around you. And like whenever a person leaves or you lose somebody or you break up from something or you just like, even just leaving home or the change of whatever the pandemic was, like those kind of like things where it's like, oh, but I'm really comfortable and I really, really like where I am right now and now I have to do something else. It's like, those to me are moments of heartbreak. I'm trying to get better at that.
Moment of being most proud.
Moment of being most proud. I think like selling out some of my own shows for the first time, I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Standing in the middle of the Grand Ole Opry Circle was definitely a proud moment for me. I struggle, I think, with the word proud. Like I need to like own more of these moments, but I really feel we have an event in my hometown called Big Hearts for Big Kids, and it's like a charity fundraiser that supports our local youth shelter, and we've been doing that for like 13 years. It's been over $2 million, and like to me that's like, right, this is what music can do and what I've been a part of. Like I really feel proud of that.
I like that. All right, I have a few more. This one's a little bit more. Moment of betrayal.
Moment of betrayal. Dang, these are deep. How many more we got?
Only two more.
Only two more? Okay.
And those ones are far easier.
Okay, moment of betrayal.
Because I think that's a common thread in, it's sad, but it's like in what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to trust in this business, and then you learn a lesson, and then you maybe don't want to trust as much anymore sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I think betrayal is maybe like the picture looking different than you thought it would be.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like, oh, like, and I think I honestly in the last little while, like, have betrayed myself in some of the process of like writing and working on new things and then it not feeling right or the picture changing or feeling the pressure within the system of the label and just being like, dang, we don't get to put this out. Okay, let me work on something else. Or like, it's like sort of like almost confusing myself in that process. I think it's like been a betrayal of self. Yeah.
Moment of feeling surprised.
Surprised. Maybe the piece that came from like making the decision to like go back to being independent was just like, oh.
And you probably didn't imagine that happening.
I didn't. No, at first it was like, oh, this is going to be so hard. And what am I doing? And also this seems so terrifying and I'm scared and like this doesn't feel right. And like, and then all of a sudden to get on the other side of like what's hard about that and then be like, oh, I suddenly have this peace of mind that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. This is great. That's a nice surprise.
And the last one would be moment of growth.
Every single day. I'm just like, wow, that's something else we got to work on and conquer. I think I've felt that in the last few shows, like standing on stage, like worrying less about what I'm saying or just being more funny or in the moment of something and just being like, oh, like I care less about making something perfect in this moment and just being more real about that. And that feels more like more growth to me.
Okay. And before I end every show, now I think what the last guest asked, and I can't ask her that one because she doesn't apply to her, and I'm not going to ask her that.
Now I'm scared.
Oh no, you're Canadian, so you can't vote.
Oh, yeah, true. I can't.
Which we also don't care to talk about that, but it was just funny. He had asked ask them who they're voting for, and I said we're not doing that. But also, I always ask my guests to ask the next guest a question. And you're not allowed to know who the next guest is.
Okay.
So, because unfortunately you really can't answer that question, because first of all, you can't vote.
Ask them who they're voting for. I do love playing the Canadian card, but
so now I ask you to give me a question to ask my next guest.
Ooh.
It could be about anything too. It doesn't have to be music related. It's always fun, but it could be anything.
What's filling your tank right now?
Right now, what's filling your tank?
Like what's giving you, whether it's inspiration or just like this idea of like, well, like what's firing you up?
Okay. Yeah. I love it. Tenille, this has been a lot of fun.
It has. Thank you so much for having me today.
First time meeting you, but I feel like I've known you. So that I always
feel
love
the same about you. It's been
happens.
really easy to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much.